How are the effects of taking a stimulant ADHD medication different from the effects of taking a non-stimulant ADHD medication? Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you are new here. My name is Michael and I was diagnosed with ADHD in adulthood. If you are new to my channel, then please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, share this video, and leave a comment down below and I will reply to your comment within 72 hours. Today I will be comparing and contrasting my experience taking lisdexamfetamine, which is the generic version of Vyvanse, with my experience taking atomoxetine, which is the generic version of Strattera. First, I will briefly discuss each medication's mechanism of action. Lisdexamfetamine is a stimulant medication, and its chemical structure is an L-lysine amino acid molecule covalently bound to dextroamphetamine, which is an isomer of amphetamine. And no, amphetamine is not what some people might think it is. Amphetamine is a generic version of the ADHD medication Adderall. Sometime after Vyvanse is swallowed, enzymes in red blood cells cleave the lisdexamfetamine molecules into its components, which are L-lysine and dextroamphetamine. Dextroamphetamine is what improves ADHD symptoms, and it does so by entering neurons that synthesize the neurotransmitters dopamine, norepinephrine, or serotonin, stimulating those neurons to release more of those neurotransmitters, and inhibiting the reuptake of the same neurotransmitters by the same neurons. Unlike Vyvanse, atomoxetine is a non-stimulant medication. Atomoxetine is a norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, meaning it prevents the reuptake of norepinephrine by the same neurons that release the norepinephrine. At the end of the ADHD assessment that I had with a nurse practitioner back in December 2024, the nurse practitioner gave me a prescription of atomoxetine. I felt like the nurse practitioner was inclined to prescribe me a stimulant medication, but I was worried about becoming addicted to a stimulant, which was why I asked if I could be prescribed a non-stimulant medication. The dosage of Strattera that the nurse practitioner put me on was 40 milligrams per day, and the prescription was for 14 days. When I first started taking Strattera, I took it at night before going to bed. I took it at night because I was worried that I might experience side effects if I took it in the morning. Some common side effects of Strattera include nausea, drowsiness, dry mouth, and decreased appetite. However, taking Strattera at night was a huge mistake because then I took hours to fall asleep, or I woke up in the middle of the night and took hours to fall back asleep. Therefore, I switched to taking Strattera in the morning. Thankfully, I did not experience any side effects from taking Strattera in the morning. Once I did that, I noticed an improvement in my concentration and productivity and a decrease in my impulsiveness. I felt significantly less inclined to scroll on Instagram and YouTube when I knew I was supposed to be doing more important things. Before I started taking Strattera, I would have overwhelming feelings of dread whenever I knew I needed to do a large amount of work, or whenever I knew I needed to do work that required me to pay a large amount of attention to detail. However, once I started taking Strattera, those feelings of dread dramatically decreased. Throughout the 14 days for which my Strattera prescription lasted, I did forget to take my medication on 3 of those days. That was how, when 11 of those 14 days had passed, I had 6 40 milligram capsules remaining. For the final 3 days out of those 14 days, I took 2 capsules per day, thereby taking 80 milligrams of Strattera per day. I did that because I felt a decrease in the effects of 40 milligrams of Strattera, to the point where I felt like I was not even taking the medication. On the 3rd day of my 3 days of taking 80 milligrams per day, I had an appointment with my family doctor. In one of my previous videos, the link to that video is somewhere up here, I briefly discussed that appointment, and now I will provide more details of what happened during that appointment. So I showed my family doctor my Strattera prescription bottle and asked my family doctor if I could get a new prescription for Strattera. I told my family doctor about my negative experience with the psychiatrist's clinic, which my family doctor had previously referred me to. Also, I told my family doctor about the fact that I started taking 80 milligrams of Strattera per day on my own accord. Then my family doctor basically said to me, "The psychiatrist told you to follow up with me. Why did you take matters into your own hands and see a nurse practitioner?" In the video linked above, I explained in detail my negative experience with the psychiatrist's clinic. That negative experience motivated me to see a nurse practitioner. And from my viewpoint as a patient, my experience with this particular nurse practitioner was much better than my experience with the psychiatrist's clinic. However, my family doctor seemed to disagree with my viewpoint and chose to trust the psychiatrist instead of the nurse practitioner. Also, my family doctor told me that I was not supposed to take my medication in a manner different than prescribed, meaning I was not supposed to increase my dose of Strattera to 80 milligrams per day without being instructed to do so by the healthcare professional who prescribed me the medication. My family doctor then proceeded to give me a prescription of 10 milligram capsules of the generic version of Vyvanse and instructed me to take one 10 milligram capsule every morning for 14 days and then increase my dose to 20 milligrams per day starting on the 15th day. Now I will talk a bit about my experience thus far taking Vyvanse. During my first 3 days or so of taking 10 milligrams per day, my concentration and productivity was around the same as when I had first started taking Strattera and around the same as when I was taking 80 milligrams of Strattera per day. Beginning on my 4th day or so of taking 10 milligrams of Vyvanse per day, I went back to feeling like I was not even taking the medication. Then, on the 15th day of my Vyvanse prescription, I started taking 20 milligrams per day, and my concentration and productivity once again returned to the same as when I first started taking Vyvanse. However, what I noticed was that throughout my time taking 20 milligrams per day, tasks that required a significant amount of attention to minute details still felt overwhelming, and there were times when I would miss those minute details. In mid-February of 2025, I had another appointment with my family doctor, who gave me a prescription of 30 milligrams of Vyvanse per day to begin at the end of February. Now that I am on a daily dose of 30 milligrams of Vyvanse while also being on a daily dose of 150 milligrams of sertraline, which is an SSRI, now that I eat a well-balanced diet, which includes a high-protein breakfast, now that I jog about 5 kilometers on most days, because I do need off days to let my body recover, and now that I sleep for around 7.5 hours every night without waking up in the middle of the night, my concentration has dramatically improved. My productivity has improved too, but when I do my work or my household chores, I still check some details more times than I should. However, my family doctor has increased my dose to 40 milligrams per day, and I will be starting that soon. So I will see whether that increases my OCD tendency to check things or whether it improves my OCD compulsions. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, then please smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, share this video with others who might find it helpful, and leave a comment down below, and I will reply to your comment within 72 hours. I look forward to seeing you again in my next video. Take care.